Before planning a long vacation in California or dreaming of a small beach house in Los Angeles, perhaps you should take a pause. Try listening to the entire song Hollywood Victim by Don Felder and watch this video to the end. Because sometimes the most beautiful illusions can also become traps waiting for you to get bogged down. Los Angeles, once hailed as the capital of cinema, the place where all roads lead to glory, is now crumbling block by block. It wasn't due to an earthquake, but because of invisible cracks within society. No more neon lights beckoning, no more opportunities waiting with open arms. Only the victims of Hollywood's spotlight remain, camping out in a grimy street corner, huddled beside trash cans and rats, clutching fading memories of a future that seems hopeless. In today's video, we'll walk down every street, from Figueroa to Skid Row, from Venice Beach to Hollywood Boulevard, to trace the path of a city on the brink of collapsing from the very icon that once captivated the world. Behind every person is a story. Behind every tent is a faded memory. And perhaps, behind the indifference of this city lies a wake-up call for the entire United States.
You already have room.
Yeah, no, let's go.
200?
Yeah.
For how long?
30 minutes to an hour. Hold on.
200?
Yeah, baby.
What you just witnessed is part of the silent transactions on Figueroa Street, where darkness falls and a cycle of vice begins to turn. Los Angeles can still enchant with its golden sunlight reflecting off glass towers and the proud palm trees lining its boulevards. But just head south, to a stretch with a sign for Figueroa Street, near the intersection of West 5th Street, and all the dreamy layers will immediately fall away. Stepping here, the most common sight you'll easily encounter is beautiful young women standing there, dressed in eye-catching outfits under traffic lights, or even right in the middle of the road. It's not hard to guess what they were standing there for, but the true nature has never been as clear on the surface as it is when operating in the shadows. Those girls weren't standing there by choice, but because events had swept them into an invisible vortex, where dreams and efforts became raw materials to be molded, exploited, and consumed. A girl who used to work here shared, "You could earn $10,000 a week, but I didn't keep a penny. Everything is given to the head of the supply chain. That's the rules of the game." It's hard to believe that in the mid-21st century, in a state that was once a symbol of the American dream, there are still places where people do not have the most basic right: freedom. Of course, that's not the whole story. In South Los Angeles, where Figueroa Street intersects, has long been a borderland between order and chaos. A place where the homeless, street crime, and clandestine nighttime activities coexist, intertwine, and spread in ways that no one can control. The decline here didn't hit like a storm. It crept in like a crack starting from the foundation of the house, then gradually climbed the walls, taking over every neighborhood, every street corner. According to LAPD reports for many consecutive years, this area has consistently been among the highest crime areas in the metropolitan region, with an increasing number of injury incidents, property thefts, and emergency calls for assistance. Although visible crime rates have decreased somewhat compared to the post-COVID-19 era, and the number of homeless people in Los Angeles has dropped by 3.4% in 2025, the widespread nature of the crisis has not abated. Programs like Inside Safe, proposed by Mayor Karen Bass, have helped to clear some of the homeless from major urban corridors. But the reality in Figueroa shows. When one area is cleared, a new one forms, almost in an unnamed cycle. The tent situation continues to fill up short sections of sidewalk, from 83rd to 87th Street, then extending to 92nd and spilling into side alleys. No longer a few isolated cases. This crisis has become an alternative form of community, quietly redefining urban living space. A 72-year-old woman who used to live near Figueroa Street shared, "Everything evil that exists in this world is concentrated on that street." My family and I had to move elsewhere because we couldn't bear to let the children grow up in such a bad environment. Los Angeles and the entire United States are losing themselves. Despite being a neighborhood within a city considered the most livable paradise in the United States. However, fundamental principles like safety, justice, or trust seem to have gradually slipped away from reality. Figueroa Street is not just a street. It's the flip side of the coin, where the American dream is molded into a consumer tool, where the existence of the poor becomes fuel for a misguided consumer society. And if a city can allow thousands of people to live on the fringes of light, unheard, unprotected, and forced to choose between survival and dignity, what does that say about the very system we once trusted? Perhaps America won't collapse in a day, but is silently rotting away each night, starting on the very streets that no one dares to walk on anymore. Sunset Boulevard, a name that once evoked images of a golden America. An avenue runs along the west coast of Los Angeles, winding towards the Pacific Ocean like a strip of film. It was on this very road that Hollywood was formed. The studios, the movie theaters, the yellow neon signs, all of them once created the glamorous illusion that the world believed was the American dream. But perhaps what few people notice is, Sunset starts from Figueroa, and not just geographically. What once happened in that controversial neighborhood, the tents, the breakdown of order, the feeling of helplessness spreading among the residents, now seems to be flowing along this street. Sunset, once the gateway to light, is being pulled back by a darkness that is gradually engulfing everything. At 7323 Sunset Boulevard, right next to the AT&T building, residents have had to live in insecurity amidst a tent city that has existed for the past 17 months. It's not just the sight of tents popping up right next to the walkways, but also the series of small but frequent crimes that wear down the entire neighborhood. Car vandalism, mail theft, garage break-ins, or in one case, that stunned the community.
I look at my car every single morning to see if it's been broken into today.
Residents say that for nearly a year and a half, the city has only carried out 3 official cleanup drives. Each time, the homeless person leaves for a few days, then returns within 24 to 48 hours. A quiet loop, almost accepted as a familiar cycle of despair. An exasperated resident said, "This cleanup is no different from a service, but it's a private garbage collection service for the homeless. Today the tent goes up. Next week the tent pops up again." Council member Nithya Raman, who represents the area, had previously committed to ensuring compliance with the ADA and finding a safe camping location. But so far, the promise has not materialized. Instead, the city only partially implemented Ordinance 41.18, primarily through the Care Plus cleanup program, which many criticize as a form of weeding without pulling up the roots. Sunset Boulevard, once a gateway to movie theaters, recording studios, and artistic dreams, now feels like a descent into a prolonged urban nightmare. The damp silver tents were pitched at the foot of fashion billboards. Police cars sped by without stopping, and the people grew increasingly silent. How many other symbols will continue to slip from memory simply because no one is patient enough to save each block, each intersection, each row of buildings? Sunset is not just a street, it's a warning that dreams can be shattered if we let each neighborhood fall into darkness. If Sunset is Hollywood's thin mask and Figueroa is the blade cutting through the urban shell, then downtown Los Angeles is the city's heart. A heart that is beating erratically, growing weaker, and perhaps failing. Once a symbol of post-crisis revival, downtown LA is expected to redefine the modern city, a place where glass skyscrapers will pave the way for a prosperous future. But right now, the city's core is becoming a gathering point for despair, a place where tents are constantly springing up as a survival reflex, where every city block is overflowing with garbage, used medical supplies, and faces devoid of hope. The focal point of attention here must be Skid Row. Just a few blocks from Los Angeles commercial, financial, and tourist hubs, this place seems like another world, dark, suffocating, and full of despair. With over 4,800 homeless people crammed into less than 54 city blocks, Skid Row stands as a stark scar on the face of a prosperous urban landscape. Makeshift tent camps made from plastic tarps, scrap wood, and tangled ropes are scattered along the sidewalks amidst piles of uncollected garbage. The thick smell of urine, stale food, and street dust mixed in the hot, dry California air made many passers-by hold their breath and walk very quickly. Here, people are not only lacking roofs, they lack clean water, electricity, toilets, and even recognition that they are still part of this city. In the mornings when the campsite is being cleared, city staff arrive with garbage trucks, demolition teams, and a few notices. What was left, sleeping bags, medicine, even personal documents, was gathered up like trash, and the people living in those tents were, once again, pushed to the margins of existence. The city government believes there is a temporary solution. The hotel is being converted into a temporary shelter. But reality seems to tell a different story. The room isn't big enough, the procedures are complicated, and the stay was too short to provide any stability. Those brought into hotels today may be asked to leave in less than 2 weeks, and then return to the streets, only to start life over from scratch. It's bitter that right where Hollywood's cinematic dreams are born, there exists a community whose only dream is to survive the day. Some local residents expressed that sweeping the camp is necessary to maintain hygiene and order. But even they admit, that's not a solution. It just pushes the problem out of sight. Clean it up today, and new tents will sprout up again tomorrow. And if all we clear away is people, then what's left is just a colder city. If a society is judged by how it treats its most vulnerable members, what does the image of Skid Row reflect about Los Angeles itself? And if a person's existence can be considered a problem to be solved, then is the government gradually legitimizing the elimination of humanity? Venice Beach was once hailed as the Pearl of the Pacific, a place where street art mingled with the sound of waves, where young people skateboarded past vibrant graffiti walls, and where visitors from around the world came to experience a corner of California that was free-spirited and full of creativity. But by 2025, just stepping onto the coastal path that stretches from Rose Avenue to Windward Circle, one could easily feel like they've wandered into an unnamed refugee camp. Hundreds of plastic tents, old shopping carts, dirty mattresses, and piles of belongings stretched along the beach that was once the pride of Los Angeles. No longer the bustling street vendors, no longer the scattered guitar music. Instead, lost eyes, bodies wrapped in tattered blankets huddled between the midday sun and the bone-chilling cold of night. In June 2025, a report by the Venice Neighborhood Council showed that the number of tent encampments in the coastal area had nearly doubled since the post-pandemic period. Among them, many were once artists, workers, or veterans, people who had homes, professions, and a past. But an accident, a medical debt, or simply losing a job has pushed them to the margins of life. Not a few residents here feel frustrated. A local shop owner shared, "I once saw 2 people fighting over a bottle of water. A person screams and bangs on the door every night right outside my shop. And yet, no one came to help." According to LAPD data, the rates of petty theft, break-ins, and fender benders in the Venice area have increased significantly over the past 12 months. Those numbers not only reflect a state of loss of control, they are also a warning about a community that is gradually fracturing. Meanwhile, the city government is still struggling between 2 extremes, maintaining its tourism image and protecting the rights of the homeless. The encampment to home program was once widely implemented, but its actual effectiveness remains controversial. Many people were placed in temporary housing, but without sufficient psychological support, without jobs, and without long-term companionship. And just a few weeks later, they were back at the beach, back where they felt less judged. The dream of living by the sea, once a symbol of the California lifestyle, has now become a bitter paradox. Because right next to million-dollar apartments are people who can't afford a meal. Tourists visiting Venice Beach no longer look up to watch the sunset, but walk faster each time they pass the tent camps. What have we lost to make Venice what it is today? Is it not true that when society stops investing in vulnerable communities, the price is not just a few square meters of encroachment, but a crack in the belief in justice, humanity, and tolerance? Venice Beach is no longer a place of youthful dreams. It's slowly becoming a place where dreams are washed ashore by the waves, soaking wet, cold, and no one comes to pick them up. When a city faces widespread crises, from tents on the boulevard to street crime, the natural reaction of the people is to turn to the authorities. But what disappoints many people the most is perhaps not the absence of a solution, but the way policies are implemented. Piecemeal, unsynchronized, and frequently changed mid-course. From Mayor Karen Bass's Inside Safe initiative to ordinances like 41.18 banning tent encampments near schools, churches, or public facilities, and then to Capoeira Sei, Wamway, Yapras Luz, Bragra, Grand Prime camp sweeps, these policies sound drastic. But for those on the inside, it was a series of short-term interventions, more firefighting than addressing the root cause. Residents living near downtown LA say the tents were cleared on Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon, a new camp had sprung up just a few dozen steps away. A sanitation worker for the city described, "We collect things, wash the streets, but the government has nowhere to move people. Everything repeats weekly like a meaningless ritual." Another issue is the lack of connection between levels. The city government issued an emergency housing program, while the county focused on medical and mental health support, and the state of California invested in temporary housing. Each place goes in a different direction with no effective coordination mechanism, leading to hundreds of millions of dollars being spent, but with very limited actual results. And meanwhile, local community groups, from charities to churches, are the ones bearing the burden that the government should be handling. They distribute food, set up temporary shelters, and connect the homeless with support systems. But they lack sufficient resources, and sometimes they are hampered by administrative regulations that render all efforts futile. Policy, if it's just a patch on a tattered garment, the more you sew, the more deeper holes are revealed. And the question is, when will this city stop dealing with things piecemeal and truly begin a comprehensive healing process? Across Los Angeles, especially in areas like Koreatown, Hollywood, and near downtown, streets once bustling with restaurants, cafes, laundromats, and gas stations now seem to be shrinking. According to the latest statistical data, over 6,451 businesses have filed for closure in Los Angeles County alone. And this trend didn't stop after the pandemic. It's continuing to this day. There are many reasons. But when people are asked what makes them leave, the answer often revolves around one word: safety. A Mexican-born convenience store owner in the Pico Union neighborhood shared, "My windows were broken 3 times in 1 month. Calling the police, they only arrived 3 hours later. They are also helpless, and so am I. So I closed the door." Another trend is quietly but noticeably unfolding. Those with means, particularly the affluent middle class, are choosing to leave the city for the suburbs or other states like Texas and Arizona. They left not only with their possessions, but also with the belief that this city was once a place to dream, but no longer a place to settle. And as a chain reaction, the withdrawal of businesses and residents further empties the neighborhoods, making them appear more hesitant to new investors. Essential services like banks, post offices, and health clinics are also gradually shrinking due to a lack of customers, transforming a vibrant city into a network of grey areas that are half alive, half dead. The sad thing is that this outrage is rarely expressed publicly. There were no angry crowds, just moving trucks leaving quietly, emails cancelling lease agreements, and clearance signs hastily taped to glass cabinets. A city can survive the loss of a tourist season, a health crisis, but can it stand if it loses the trust of those who once called it home? There was a time when people only whispered worriedly about the future of Los Angeles, as a distant warning, a dire prospect if everything went too far. But now, that warning has stopped at the doorsteps of over 3 million residents in this city. Los Angeles, a symbol of popular culture, the global entertainment industry hub, and one of the largest cities in the United States, seems to be entering a cycle of decline that no one can deny. In just the past 3 years, the city's population has decreased by over 190,000 people, according to US Census data. This is no longer ordinary volatility, but a clear sign that confidence in the city is wavering. But what reason caused a city once nicknamed the City of Angels to lose its wings? Partly due to the skyrocketing cost of living. The average rent in LA is now over $2,500 per month, nearly 40% higher than the national average. A retired couple who used to live in the mid-Wilshire area shared, "We used to dream of a peaceful retirement here. But utility bills, security, and even social isolation are pushing us away from that dream." Additionally, the surge in homelessness and the level of unrest in some areas have made the city unstable. From Skid Row to Venice Beach, from Figueroa to Sunset Boulevard, areas once famous destinations are now warnings. The ineffectiveness of policies and delays in response also exacerbated the problem. Before aid programs could arrive, tents had already sprung up. By the time budget packages were approved, hundreds of families had already left. People feel left behind, and frustration gradually turns into apathy, then transforms into action, leaving the city. Is this the normal cycle of a city adjusting after the pandemic and economic crisis? So, is this the moment when Los Angeles, as a model urban center for the United States, is cracking under the weight of the very things that once made it great? The fall of a city doesn't always happen with a bang. It could start with silent moving trucks, shops closing earlier than usual, and signs that are no longer lit. And when the last person leaves a neighborhood, all that remains are echoes from a prosperous time. If Los Angeles once represented the American dream, its cracks now perhaps reflect something larger, about a nation struggling to redefine itself between a glorious past and an uncertain present. Los Angeles was once a place people came to start over, to dream big, to build something better. But now, in many neighborhoods, people don't start anything anymore. They're just trying to survive day by day, in flimsy tents, among skyscrapers that no longer look down on them. Entire streets were occupied not only by tents, but also by silence. Silence from the system, from the community, from those who used to pass through here every day, but now only look back through the car window. Perhaps the scariest thing isn't the collapse itself, but the fact that we've become accustomed to it. If a city like Los Angeles, wealthy, famous, once a source of national pride, can become a place where no one dares to stay, what does that say about the future of other cities? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to tell stories that not everyone is willing to listen to. But everyone needs to know. Each share is an opportunity to add one more person who understands, one more person who cares, and one more ray of hope for those whose lives are lived in silence. This video is not intended to condemn any organization, individual, or political group. All information presented is based on publicly available data, official reports, and field observations from multiple perspectives. The stories, images, and perspectives presented are educational in nature, reflecting social realities to stimulate constructive discussion without creating incitement, panic, or stereotyping. We do not condone any illegal behavior, normalize suffering, or turn human misery into entertainment. This is not a conclusion, but an invitation to reflect together, to dialogue together, and to hold on to the remaining humanity within each of us.